Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with feelings. And boy, I've had a lot this week. As some of you may have seen from the little thumbnail picture I put up, my life has been a bit of a roller coaster this week. So I don't know how your week has been, but hopefully as we go through the broadcast today, you will tell me. And it's this is a really important thing for you to understand is that we all have feelings, and there's nothing wrong with feelings, all right? It's just how long do you hang on to them? And what I found is, hi there, Sandy. And what I found is that we're inclined to hang on to the good feelings, but don't realize that, we need to keep them all in balance in order to live a healthy life. So first of all, I guess I should say welcome to the fall. I don't know about you guys, but I could really feel it this morning enough that I had to go and tweak my furnace and get it to kick in. It was quite a shock to me that I needed to do that, but I did. For those of you who don't know, Dear Mama Sal is not just me. It's a group of people who get together 3 times a week. And it is our delight to be able to discuss with you on Friday lunchtime our feelings about certain things, and we talk about some of the stuff that's going on with everybody. And then on Friday evening, we talk about coping with life, where I do cooking on a budget. And then on Sunday afternoons, we talk about coping with stress, because we all have it, don't we? Um, our quotes today are about keeping in balance when life is doing a roller coaster thing. And it's really important. If you haven't followed us on Facebook and Twitter, please do so. That is where we give you updates on other viewers that you might know, or anything else if I need to change a broadcast or cancel one for some reason. And don't forget, of course, to give this a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And then secondly, remember to click the bell, which will tell you if there's a broadcast coming up. The first quote that I found and I loved was, "Life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you have to keep on moving." And that's one of those things that I kept saying to myself all week, which is the most important thing I can do is that I need to be able to keep moving on with my routine, right? Regardless of what was going on in my life, I worked really hard to keep to my routine. Do any of you relate to that? If I can keep to my routine, then my house doesn't get too untidy. Um, it means that I am able to focus. It means that I am able to just keep track of my mind. And that to me is the most important thing. We spent a lot of time talking about emotional intelligence. And one of the things that really comes over time and time again is how important it is to keep your mind in balance. Don't go too far one way or too far the other. Really important. It's great to see you again, Sandy. And I do want to say that, it's just like, I love it when we get to see people, because we don't normally see you at lunchtime, I don't think. So that's awesome. And Sandy's saying that it's chilly where she is, and she's in Eastern Canada, or nearly. And by the way, talking about Eastern Canada, I believe that Hurricane Fiona is on its way to Pat's Land, if I can call it that. And so Jody, if you could make a note, I need to just drop a note to Pat after the broadcast. I saw a quote that said, "I've learned that you can't have everything and do everything at the same time." I wonder if any of you relate to that. It's like, if you're going to keep to your routine, something else needs to give, all right? So what I found is, when I keep to my routines, and that's how I cope with a lot of stress, I don't have room to think about the negatives too much. I'm too busy doing other things. And as some of you know, I also I make sure I spend time doing creative things, because that gets my mind out of processing and into problem solving with fun things. And that's a really good thing for me to do with my brain. I wonder what you do with yours when you're trying to just keep level. All right, so let me get on to what happened during my week, because it really was quite the week. Before I do that, I need to do birthday. Happy birthday to Charlotte. If Charlotte is around, happy birthday to you, Charlotte. I never quite know who's hiding in the wings there. I hope you have a wonderful day. And the next birthday I believe that we know about is next week, which would be Andrea in Berlin. So just so that you know, thoughts and prayers continue, please, for Erin, who's still recovering from her operation. And for anybody else that I might not know about, if any of you do need thoughts and prayers, please make sure you let me know so I can put up that request to the viewers. I say that because sometimes I lose track of everything that's going on, and I don't like doing that, but it's a reality for me sometimes. I saw a quote this week that I really wanted to read with you because one of our viewers had a really tough week in terms of being upset by a family member, in fact, being betrayed in a way by a family member. And I thought this was really great. And it said, it's not my responsibility to make sure other people are responsible. True. It's not my responsibility to make other people responsible. Let go of that need, all right? It's not my job to rescue people from their drama. What I do believe, though, is that I can look back at my life and see how I lived in drama. And the reason it didn't stop was because I didn't do anything to stop it. It's okay if others get angry. It's okay to say no. As we say here on DearMamaSal, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify it. It's my job to make me happy and figure out what brings me joy. If I spend as much time doing that as I do worrying about other people, my life would be better. Would you agree? I have the right to feel my feelings no matter. And no matter what anyone else feels about my feelings, all right? I'm going to give you an example of that. No one has to agree with me. No one has the right to verbally abuse me, and that includes my family, my friends, my partners, and my coworkers. It's okay to spend time alone without explaining yourself. I do not need permission to be who I am, think what I think, nor to honor me. Other people have every right to not like me and to disagree with me. Boy, when you've learned that one, life becomes a whole lot different. I have the right to end draining conversations and relationships. I know I am enough. Well, interesting, Sandy saying, oh, I felt this one so strong in Europe. I repeatedly said, I have a right to my feelings. Good. Well done, Sandy. And, in terms of the quotes that we're doing today about keeping our balance, would you agree that life is a balance between holding on and letting go? There's certain things we need to work really hard to hold on to. Our self-respect, our sense of humor, our discipline, all those sort of things. But boy, we also need to work really hard at letting go of those things that we have no use for. And it is important when you can understand that balance. So let me go back here to where I was in terms of what happened. Right. The first thing I wanted to say is that I was quite surprised last night when I realized how cold it was getting. And I thought, if it's cold enough for me to need to get a woolly sweater, maybe I should be disconnecting the air conditioner now. Do any of you relate to that? It's sort of like, maybe it's time. So I did. And I'm now sort of in the process. I think before I put it away, I'm going to give it a deep soak in some Lysol type stuff, to get rid of any bacteria in there, and the hoses and the other bits. And then I will let it dry really well all week. And then I'll put it away and pack it away for the winter, which is fast approaching, apparently. How many of you agree with this quote? It says, balance is not something you find. It's something you create. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to work quite hard to keep balance. Now, I had some strange happinesses. And the first one, of course, is the one that I haven't brought with me. Hold on a second. Okay. The first thing that happened is my socks arrived. And these are socks. A second, let me turn these the right way around. That have a toe and then a regular sock. That means I can wear my Birkenstocks longer and probably into the winter. And why is that important? I find they really help exercise my feet and keep my swelling down in my feet. So I was really happy. Three lots arrived, and I got black, I've got gray, and I've got white. Now, white obviously is going to look a bit strange in the winter, but hey. So I'm really, really happy to have found that. It was one of those things where I thought, I wonder if anybody has thought that that would be useful other than me. And if you know me, as soon as I have a thought like that, I go, let me check. And sure enough, somebody had. So remember that if you think something needs to be done, like I thought, that's what I really need, then there are other people that need it too. And that is how great inventions are made. And, you need to remember that it's not by chance that we have great inventions. So am I the only one that turned on the furnace? And, it's like I knew it had already kicked in this week. One morning I woke up and I thought, what's that funny noise? And I went, oh, that would be the furnace. It's kicked in already. And yet, it was like this morning when I got up, I sat in my living room and I thought, I really need to start turn on my fireplace. Not that I want to have it roaring. I just need to get the pilot light going because that actually gives off a fair amount of heat on its own. Yeah, Jodie's saying that she had the fireplace heater on this morning. Yep, it was definitely a different sort of morning this morning. And, I'm certain we all have that same feeling. I don't want to put it on because, that's money. I want to tell you, at one point, I was literally shivering. And I went, this is insane. Go and put the furnace on. It's just like, there's no point in shivering, right? And the other thing is, I realized that I could have put on, more, a heavier cardigan, for example. And I went, no, I need to keep the house at a decent temperature. Now then, some of you know that on Tuesday, I went off for a visit to my specialist. And I must say it was incredibly efficient, is what I'd have to say. Everything about it was efficient, except, of course, everybody's wearing masks. And if you're hard of hearing, which I am, it's almost impossible to hear with all the other distractions going on. And that made it quite frustrating for me. I literally at one point had my head down. There was a little hole at the bottom of the screen so you could pass things to the receptionist. At one point, because she wouldn't adapt, I had to put my ear down to that hole. And I explained to her, if I can't see your lips move, I can't hear you. But she didn't care, the first person, but that's okay. Luckily, other people did. And when I went to actually meet the specialist, it was a case of getting undressed so that he could meet me. You know, and I wasn't expecting that for some reason. I don't know why, but I did. And then I said afterwards, it's been a long time since a guy has fondled my boobs, but I got that opportunity this week. And also, I actually got some education. Hi there, Jenny. I also got some education. Up until this week, I didn't know what a stereotactic biopsy is, but that's what I'm having on Tuesday. Basically, what it says is that they are going to do a boob squish, not quite as bad as a heavy mammogram, apparently, just to get everything stable. And then they're going to insert a hollow needle and draw out some tissue. Now, the reason it's stereotactic is stereo as in they'll be doing two things at the same time, multitasking, because while they are trying to work out where to go, they'll need to take x-rays, all right, to make sure that they get the needle to where those little bits are running around that they don't like the look of, the bits that they're calling highly suspicious, and continue to call them that. So I did learn a new word. I've never heard of stereotactic before, but I'm getting quite good at saying it now. You know what I mean? It's just like it's all part of the education. The other thing I was really happy with is both, the surgeon was cute as a button, and I'm pretty sure he was gay, but he talked at 120 words a minute. And I literally said to him, I'm really sorry. I am hard of hearing. You are going way too fast for my comprehension. And I haven't got the advantage of being able to lip read. And I must admit, he immediately pulled down his mask and then carried on talking more slowly. And I looked at him with all sincerity and with tears in my eyes and said, thank you so much. And I noticed that the nurse who was dealing with me did the same thing. And I really was appreciative of that. I know it probably sounds a bit strange, but you have no idea when you're under a high stress situation, your brain is doing other things anyway. And so to try and work out what people are saying, and boy, is it important what they're saying. You bet it was. However, I also had to give myself a moment to protect myself. When I had finished having all that done, and the surgeon explained to me what was going to happen, and I thanked him for that. And I said, well, how was I lucky enough to get you? And he said, luck of the draw. And I said, well, I was very lucky because I know he is the co-chair of surgery. Yeah, Jody's saying, I'm glad they quickly accommodated your needs. You're going to hear that I asked for more, actually, Jody, in a second. But what happened was when I got dressed again and I was out and they were giving me the appointment for next week. By the way, I live in Canada. You don't normally get these appointments this quickly. And that's, has me a little concerned, but very, very grateful that I'm getting them this quickly. But I think anybody who lives in Canada will tell you normally it takes 3 months to get to see a specialist. And I got to see him in a week, and I'm going to have my biopsy on Tuesday. Pretty fast. Now, the one thing I wanted to say was there are two different sorts of biopsy, right? One is where they go in and they dig out some tissue and pull it back out. They have it's like a drill that they drill down for oil, one of those things that goes around and then does this and it cuts out some flesh, some tissue and pulls it out. The one I've got is going to suck it out, right? So there are two different sorts. And from what I can gather, I've got the less painful one. But even so, there was a lot of reading. Anyway, I went out and I was talking to the nurse that had been helping me, and I asked her a question, and she said, "No, the surgeon already explained that to you." And I smiled very deeply, and I said, "Yeah, I'm sure he did." And as you probably can imagine, my brain was trying to take in what he was saying at the rate he was saying it at, whilst coping with a rather lot of stress. So if I miss that particular point, I'm not surprised. I wonder if you could possibly help me enough to repeat it for me. And the way that I worded it changed the way she started to react to me. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I totally understand." What he actually said was da 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 da. And I said, "Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the time." By the way, Jody, one of the things that kept me in balance this week was I got the new popcorn maker. Let's just hold on 1 second because I need to dig it out of the dishwasher. All right, so Jody was telling me that she had a silicone popcorn maker. And I got one. And one of the nice things about having a silicone is that when you don't want it, it just folds into next to nothing. All right, and you can put it away. I like that. But the interesting thing was, Jody, I didn't get the one you showed me because I didn't want lime green in my kitchen. You understand that, I'm sure. So, and I looked to see if they made it in another color. And then I found out this one was made by the people who made my cloche. Wait a minute. Yep. If you don't know what a cloche is, it's something that looks like this. And I quite often bake bread in it. But you can cook almost anything in it, right? Because it cooks like that. So you can put all the ingredients of a stew or something in it and then just close it up. And what it does is it keeps the majority of the steam inside, but has the ability to vent as well. It makes great bread because it holds the steam in. So Jody, this is made by the same people. And because I'd had so much success with the cloche, I thought that won't be all bad. So there we are. And by the way, how many of you know that I'm bound to have been doing experiments? And one experiment that I did, Jody, and the rest of you, is I was putting some oil in the bottom, and I went, oil in the bottom. And I think you all know I make my own salad dressing. Let me try and get it this way. There we go. And that is a mixture of oil, balsamic vinegar, cumin, and honey. All right. And I want to tell you something. It tastes so good. So I thought, I wonder what happened if I poured a little bit of that at the bottom when I make my popcorn. It's just a salad dressing, but it's mostly oil, which we need, a little bit of balsamic vinegar, which gives it a really good taste, and a couple of bits of cumin and honey. And I thought, isn't that what I want on pop? It works. I put in about a tablespoon and then, shook all the popcorn in it before I popped it. So I thought you'd all like to know I'm now on an experiment of popcorn mixes. Well, because I don't always want it just to be plain, obviously. How about this one? The key is not what to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. If any of you read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the most important thing you can start your day with is, what do I have to get done today? Those are your priorities. And quite honestly, the have-tos are probably one thing, maybe two. And always start with those, right? And then, work your way down in terms of importance to you, not to anybody else, but to you. All right. Jody's saying I don't even put oil in ours, but I will try a flavored one like that for sure. Yeah, it's a good one. Happy birthday, Charlotte. Yes, I actually wished you a happy birthday at the top of the broadcast. So I'm glad you popped in, and I hope you have a wonderful one. We send our love and big hugs, and have a great birthday. Thank you for popping in. If you're in New Brunswick, be careful of the weather. I hear Fiona's heading your way in a big way, so be careful. All right, here we go. The best and safest thing is to keep a balance in your life. Acknowledge the great powers around us and in us. If you can't do that and live that way, you are really, if you can do that, sorry, and live that way, you are really a wise man. Well, that was said by Euripides, and I don't think they'd acknowledged women in his time. So you're really a wise man or woman, right? If you can keep control of your mind and keep balance, then you really are a wise person. Yeah. All right. So Charlotte's saying that Fiona's more likely to hit her home than it is where she is in New Brunswick at the moment. All right. And she's saying it's more windy than anything. It's on its way. It's not there yet. So I believe it's probably going to hit you much harder than it has at the moment. So be aware of that. So as my life went on, what I did on Tuesday was on the way back, I went to go and get the yellow paint. For those of you who've been watching the vlogs that I've been putting up, I accidentally put white paint onto my shed, which I thought was yellow paint, and it was going to dry darker, but it didn't. Because it was white paint, not yellow. Anyway, I did manage to get some yellow paint, and if you watch the vlog, you will find out how I sort of got the match to it, and I was really happy with that. I had a great feeling of accomplishment. Did any of you accomplish anything this week of which you're proud? And just type away. I'm just going to grab something else I did, if I can find it. Hang on a second. There we go. This was all Jody's influence. I finished my first infinity scarf. Okay, so if I can do this without getting lipstick on it. Here we go. So how do you like that? Jody, thank you so much. I really appreciated the inspiration. Oh, I lost one of my earrings there. Which means the yeah, that's unfortunate. What happened to the little bitty bit? Okay, well, let me discuss that. You might have noticed I was wearing, although I haven't got the bit to hold it on now, new earrings, new to you earrings. The reason I say that is because when I was spring cleaning this week, I found all sorts of jewelry that I thought I'd lost. And it goes to show why spring cleaning is a good idea. And I was actually quite surprised. I found a choker. Just hope I can still get it on, just about. All right, so I found my choker. I found these earrings. I found thicker loops as well. And then I've got another choker that I found, which is smaller. I'm not sure if I can get that one on still. Maybe I can. Just about. It's tight. So I gotta lose some more weight before I can do that. But I did find all sorts of earrings, so I was really happy. Wow. And Charlotte's saying that she did 2 51-minute races. That's for 5K. That is awesome that you did that. Anyway, so the feeling of accomplishment at actually finishing one of these, I'm now just starting the second one. But I was thinking, wouldn't this pattern that I put together look good as a head warmer? So I was thinking, I think I'm going to, an ear warmer, I think they call it, right? So I was thinking I might just do a couple of ear warmers for the winter. No, I really messed up my head. However, for all the accomplishments I got, there was a downside. I sent Clarence the cleaner. For those of you who don't know, that's the name of my robot. I sent Clarence the cleaner off to go clean yesterday without thinking. And I did the usual thing. And then I thought, after about 20 minutes, I thought, that's funny, I can't hear anything. Normally you can just hear him, bumping into things as he goes around. And I went searching for him, and guess what he'd found? My crocheting. And what he tried to do was unravel it for me. And then he got so much yarn caught up in his little rotor things that he ended up having to stop. And I went, note to self, make sure your knitting is out of the way before you send Clarence in to clean. But the knitting ended up looking like spaghetti. But I must admit it did make me laugh, so I was happy about that. How many of you understand it was like, who caused that? I did. Clarence was just doing his job. I just didn't make room for him to do his job. My bad. How about this one? The more often you decline invitations to spend time with family or friends because you're too busy either with work or other activities, the more you should realize that your life is not in balance. Yeah, Charlotte, he not only was eating it, he was undoing it as he ate it. It was amazing how much he managed to collect. And trying to get that out of his rotor, there's little rotor things that go, he has those little rotor things that go like this, that collect all the dust. They keep going like this. And they were really well enmeshed, I must say. Now, the other thing I want to say is I really had a feeling of great love. I have a group of people that I update on my health issues. And one of them, the moment that she heard I was going back for a biopsy, she immediately wrote to me and said, do you have a ride? I thought that was so thoughtful. And funny enough, it wasn't the neighbor I would have thought of. It was another one. But I thought how nice that her instant reaction to what was going on was, did I have a ride on Tuesday? And that brings me to another point, which was who actually thought about that, right? And you probably are not surprised to hear that the moment Yvonne heard, she immediately wrote and said, will you be needing a ride? Which is a different thing. And I said to her, Yvonne, they did say, because I asked, they did say I'd be okay to drive afterwards. But I said, let's just hold off for a second while I think about whether I want to or not. And I thank you so much for the offer. And then, of course, Doug got to hear about it. And this was not a thing to discuss as far as Doug was concerned. He didn't want to discuss it. He said, I will be taking you. Just tell me what time you're going to need me to pick you up. And it was just the way that he did it. It was like, no, there's no way you're driving us off to that. All right, how about this for a quote? It says, balance is a feeling derived from being whole and complete. It's a sense of harmony. It's essential to maintaining quality of life or work. I keep describing it to people as a place of Zen. That's what it feels like to me. I know that I'm in balance because I am in a place of Zen and the outside is not affecting me in any way. Right, Charlotte says she's off. She's at a resort. So have fun, Charlotte, and I'm glad you're enjoying your trip. So do you understand the difference between somebody asking me if I might need a ride and then Doug, who just wouldn't take no for an answer on that one? And I felt great love in that. Uh-huh. And that's something that I wasn't surprised about. It's who Doug is. And it was just like not a maybe. Yeah, I thought it was wonderful of him as well. However, you're going to hear that I had a problem, because then the next thing I knew, he said, and then I'll take you home to my house and I can look after you. And, you can stay the night and I can look after you and da 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 da. And I said, Dougie, bless you for that. But really, I would just like you to take me home, because I have no idea how that will affect me. How many of you know sticking a needle into a boob is in fact an invasion of my body? And I have quite strong reactions to my body being invaded because I'm a Me Too person. So, it's just like, I would feel, do any of you relate to this? I would feel more comfortable at home than I would be a guest in somebody's house. And he said, no, you could just go to bed and relax and I'd make sure. And I said, no, honey, I'm fine. Really. I just like to get home and I will, I promise you, I'll let you know if I'm struggling. And then he said, well, let Jess and I bring you dinner then. And I went, God, it's so difficult to say no to kind people, isn't it? And I just went, no, Dougie, I appreciate the thought to a level you can't imagine, but I might not feel like eating. And I know I could put it in the fridge and eat it later or whatever, but I would feel duty bound to stand and talk to you and do all sorts of things when really I might be asleep at the time that you bring that food, and that would probably be the best thing for me. And what I would like to do is honor my body rather than honor my friends and my family. Does that make sense to everybody? But boy, it was difficult to get that through. And it was so difficult to set that boundary. And, I made sure that I wrote to Jess and explained it to her as well, because I could tell by a text I got from her that she wasn't sure that Doug had explained it properly. And I said, yeah, he did. Believe you me, he did. But I said, I hear the love from both of you. But I do promise you both that if I'm struggling, I will let you know and you can come get me, if I think that's necessary. But I was very touched with all of that. How about the rest of you? All right. And I say that because sometimes when you're trying to help somebody, it's a good idea. For example, it was a good idea that Doug didn't take no for an answer about taking me to that biopsy. But then he was kind enough to back off when I said, something, honey, I know my body pretty well, and it will probably want to rest more than anything. And he said, yeah, that's why I want to take you home. And I said, no, no, no. I want to rest without feeling that I need to do anything other than just keep myself happy. And in terms of food, I tried to explain to him, I've got 2 freezers full of food that I can heat up. How about this one? There is no such thing as a work-life balance. There are work-life choices, and you make them, and they have consequences. All right? What we do every day is we make a multitude of choices, and some make us happy and some don't. And what I'm really working on at the moment is making choices that make me happy. So what I said to Dougie was, sweetie, I need to say no, although it's difficult for me to do that because I need to honor my body, and my body will just want to rest. I know that from experience. However, I would like to set a date with you, Jess, and Damien, for us to have Thanksgiving dinner sometime around Canadian Thanksgiving, which, in case you don't know, is October the 10th. And, I said that would give me greater joy if we could do that. Jeannie's saying that York, her husband, went to see the 3-year-old Lucille. I think that's a granddaughter, right? While I stayed at home. I was pleased to say no because this child is a constant motion and might scare Misty and tire me out. When York came back, he was exhausted. Yes, any time that you deal with a 3-year-old, you're going to get exhausted. And I don't know about you, but it's also an opportunity to stand in awe of the parents who manage to deal with that ongoing all day. Now, again, if you've listened to the vlogs, you will know that I've lost my passport. Weird. Really weird. I always keep my passport in the same place, and it's not where it's meant to be. And then, some of you know, I was meant to go visit Benji and Judy on Monday. And then, strangely enough, Benji suddenly canceled that trip and asked if he could put it forward to the following week. So I won't be going on this Monday coming, but maybe going the Monday afterwards if I find my passport. I don't believe in coincidences, as you know. And so therefore, is the reason I can't find my passport because I am not meant to travel at the moment? It's possible. And that's what I've been praying to St. Anthony, and thank you, Jeannie, for praying to St. Anthony as well. But I have had fun because I know that if I can't take that trip, then the chances are Doug and Benji will come and visit me instead. He's very good like that. And I thought I'd let you know that I'm busy making presents for the children. Well, I bought some presents for the children. But you remember I was learning how to make these little bags and how to write children's names or anybody's name, right? And I love that, right? That you can just personalize things now like this. And so I've got presents for all the girls that I'm just working on the little bags for them now. And each one's got a little note on it and in it. So that's good. Jody, I have a present for you. How many babies do you think your tomato has? Have a guess. Now, last week when I was showing you, I think we had 3 just beginning to come up. Am I right? 4? Mm-hmm. Yep. Isn't that incredible? So that's in 2 weeks. Now, this is the top of the 1/2 of the tomato, and that will drop off as these push away. Yeah, isn't that amazing? So all I did was take a grape tomato store-bought, cut it in half. I did that to show everybody. I can just probably pull that off now. It'll let go when it's good and ready. So that is exciting, isn't it? Yeah. And how that's possible when we know they probably do things to stop germs and things on tomatoes. I don't know how it's possible, but it worked. So I was really quite touched by that. This is a nice quote for some of you. It says, "Don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life." And I think that's really important for us to remember, that whatever else is going on, right, we need to make a life. Now, one of the other things I wanted to show you was you remember seeing this last week? Well, it's got I think you can see. Can you see all the roots that have grown now? Really good idea not to do that, so. And so what I will do is, because the roots on here have grown so much, you see all those roots, that I will be putting these into their own containers this week. And then this one will go in here until it's really got strong roots. These roots are really looking strong to me. And for those of you who haven't seen, I will transfer them into something like this. This is called hydroponics, where you're growing things just in water. And if you look at this, you can see, isn't that incredible? I'm not going to take it all the way out. Of course, getting it back in again is always a challenge. There we go. So, and these are impatiens that I have. So let me just show you the difference, right? Oh! So this is what size they are when they go here. They start this size, okay, and then it grows a bit bigger in here, and then I put it in here, and look how it grows. Really, how many of you know that gives me great pleasure? Yeah, and all I'm growing it in is water, all right? The experiment is, can I keep them alive through the winter? That's the experiment, because if I can, and I keep taking the cuttings the way that I'm doing, it means I will be self-sufficient in impatiens for the spring. Or late summer, late spring rather, ready for the summer. So that's always, that always is part of my balance every day. I go out or I spend time with growing things. It really helps me level out. Always makes me smile, always makes me happy. However, the next quote says, "You don't always need to be getting stuff done. Sometimes it's perfectly okay and absolutely necessary to shut down, kick back, and do nothing." Does that sound good to any of you? To be able to have permission to shut down, kick back, and do nothing. However, I must admit that I've found that my routine is I can do that when I've got certain other tasks done. Or if I fall asleep trying to do them. How many of you saw me talk about this magic light that I've got outside now that has a camera in it? The light actually it has, acts as a light and a camera. Very smart. And what I found out was I need to put an SD card in it. And I bought one, and the SD card itself is too small, which means it needs to be in an adapter. So I've now ordered the adapter, which hopefully will arrive this week. So that was upsetting to me. I went, why didn't it say I needed the SD card with an adapter? No, they didn't say that. Now, some of you will relate to this. Balance isn't something that you achieve every day. How many of you relate to that? Some days are better than others, right? Now, what causes the days where you're not in balance? And I would like to suggest things that you were not aware of. All right? You know, as long as your day unfolds as it should, you'll probably stay in balance. But then something else happens. I was doing really well this week when suddenly there was a knock at my door, and it turned out to be a neighbor, and they were busy doing things about the property line thing, and they wanted to just make sure I knew what they were doing. And I realized that I spent about an hour with them, but that not only freaked me out a little bit, but also messed up my plan for that particular hour. So, you know, that happens. Now, how about this for a good quote? The key to keeping your balance is to know when you've lost it. How can you tell you've lost your balance? I know how I can tell. And just before I talk about it, but how do you know if you've lost balance? I would like to say that the simple answer would be you start feeling really stressed. But sometimes you don't even realize that you are. Have you noticed that? And so for me, I keep an eye on how tidy is my home. Yeah, Jody's saying unexpected events. For me, also changing symptoms I experience from my autoimmune issues can disrupt my daily balance. Yes, you're okay as long as you can keep control of your routine, but when something interrupts the routine, then it knocks you off balance, right? And how can you know that your autoimmune system problem is going to flare up worse than normal on any given day? You can't know that. So Jody, you know, just be aware, as you would always tell me, you know, listen to your body and give it the rest it needs when those things happen. Balance your thoughts with action. If you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. All right? I've always said that to me, for example, leadership is not a title, it's an act. And I believe leadership is bringing out the best in people. And so to me, it is like I have to remember that sitting, thinking a lot won't necessarily fix my problems. However, I do know that sitting and planning is not a waste of time. And but as it so rightly says, thinking about a thing too long, you'll never get it done. And I fall foul of being somebody who can try to do too much. You're not surprised to hear that, I'm sure. You think? Yeah. I try to do too much. And how do I know? I want to show you because this probably explains it best. This is what my notes look like on Tuesday. And that was meant to be for the whole week. But you understand, I'd filled that much in by Tuesday. So what do I know? I need a different system. I don't know about you, but just looking at that much absolutely freaked me out. So then I was trying to do it so I only kept the appointments on this side and then the things to do on that side. And even that got pretty messy in 3 days. That's the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, by the way. However, I am now learning to only put a couple of things in the day like this, right? And to keep this side clear for really an appointment or something that has to be done goes on this side. The rest of it just stays on the other side. Now, the other thing is, because I am a massive planner, I found that my day timer was way too thick and unruly. And by the way, I even had notes for the specialist in here, which I never got to ask. You know, he was in and out so quickly that I never got to ask the questions, but I will get them answered. So here's what I did, and I actually am so pleased that I found it. I found two clear binders, A5 binders. Oops. I just dropped all that. Hold on 1 second. And one of them will just be for planning, all right? That's all that goes in here, just the plans. And this one I'm going to use as things that I have done. You know, in other words, when the week's completed, it goes in here. So, and those are a couple of roses that are in my garden at the moment. Don't they look pretty? Now, what fell out? Oh, it's wet down there. What fell out were all these pages that were in this binder, making it too thick. And I'm in the process of sorting those out. I think some of you know, I'm in the process of creating my own perfect day timer. You know, I've seen so many, and I like some bits from some of them, but I want it different for myself. So I'm in that process of just creating what will be the perfect day timer for me. And I had it digital, but you know what happens to me when I do things digitally? I end up opening a day up and I've got 60 things on the list. I can't do that. That just, you know, it just is insane. So I know I'm doing it wrong when that happens, right? And I think that there are a lot of things that I keep doing on a weekly or monthly basis that don't need to have reminders on them. I just need them in the main planner to check every month or season that I have done them. How about this one? We need to produce a little balance in your life. Part of this balance means not missing out on some of the marvels of life. And some of the marvels of life around you, the fun, some excitement, or other challenges in life. I think when we get hit by a medical thing, or we get hit by Christmas coming up, I'm going to talk about that in a second, you know, it suddenly gets in the way of the discipline of the routine, unless, of course, it is part of your routine. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. So can you understand that when I realized that the SD card was too small for my light that I was trying to put in, I was very disappointed in myself that I hadn't read that instruction properly. But get over it. Feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to fix the problem. Ordering the adapter was going to fix it. Some of you may have noticed that I vlogged a lot this week. There are a couple of reasons for it. Number one is viewers have asked me to go back to vlogging. And number two is I was in the car a lot more. And I was thinking, you know, it's a good thing for me to get in the car more because, you know, I always have problems with my battery in the winter. So if I get into the habit of driving my car at least 2 times a week, then I will obviously be vlogging more. But the real reason that I've been doing it is because I worked out how to be able to edit on my phone. And I can actually sit there and edit while I'm sort of half watching something, which is a new thing for me. So I was really happy that I was able to do that. And each time I do a broadcast, a vlog, I find I'm learning new things. You know, that's the way life is, isn't it? How about this one? Next to love, balance is the most important thing. You understand that I'm in the process of creating a new day timer, and I'm in the process of sorting out the things that need to go in it and not. All right. And this is, I don't have to do it all today. I just am working on that process one step at a time. And what is it that you need to slow down on? Perhaps you can give me some input. What tasks are you busy obsessing over when really you could be a lot healthier if you just did it one step at a time? If you remember my spring cleaning, I'm doing it one little bit every week. And this week's spring cleaning was trying to find the passport. And I have been through this one closet. I've still got the bottom to go through, but that's the closet where the passport normally is. So where is it? I don't know. But I haven't finished with that closet yet. And what I'm doing is I'm taking everything out and then putting it all back in again while I'm checking everything to see is the passport there. And so far, I haven't found it. So I'm not angry about that. I am just making sure that Benji and Judy know that this trip will happen if I can find my passport, obviously. Keeping the daily demands of life in balance is one of the greatest tasks of mortality. There is no peace for those whose lives are out of balance, temporarily or spiritually. Yeah, Jody's saying a cleaning routine that works on a sustainable basis. I'm still working at that. Jody, one of the things that I heard or read was it is more important to tidy up every day than it is to deep clean. Yeah, Jody's very human, right? Jody's saying, I keep getting out of the good habits I start. And the reason is because they're not part of your routine. All right. If ever you've stayed at a hotel, you will see on the back of the door somewhere there is a cleaning schedule, right? So that when the cleaner comes in to make up the room, they need to do these things in order. And as they do them, they check them off. And when they've completed the checklist, they know that room is now clean. Yes, Jody, I want to tell you one of the things that I have learned is if I don't have time to clean, I must make time to tidy. And you all know that part of my challenge is to make sure the kitchen is tidy by the time I do this broadcast every week. All right. Another thing I got this week was, I didn't get it this week, but I found it when I was shopping, and that is an herb called savory. Do any of you use that herb? It's got the greatest smell to it. So what I'm hoping to do this week is to take that out of there and repot it into smaller ones so I can give some away. If you're wondering what it tastes like, it's the thing I'd have to say, it tastes most like pepper. Okay. It has an aromatic, peppery taste. And it's used a lot in the Mediterranean. Jody's saying, I've heard of it, but I haven't used it yet. Really great taste. So I'm going to use some tonight when I'm cooking. But Jody, it is about the health benefits of it. And we will be discussing that tonight. How many of you have seen the pictures of the Russians trying to leave Russia because they're about to all get conscripted up into the military? I find it interesting that Ukraine basically said anybody between 16 and 64, needs to stay in the country, but everybody else can go. Yeah, all the men between 16 and 64. And how many men left to make sure their family got safe and then returned? I found that really interesting. Now, what I'm seeing now is in Russia, the men are fleeing the country. They don't want to be in this war. And there are lines, I believe, 10 miles deep, trying to leave the country. And you're pretty sure that Mr. Putin is going to put a stop to anybody leaving the country pretty soon, if he hasn't already. So really scary. And in a way, I am more scared of this. And so I felt so sorry. I mean, that was the feeling I got when I saw those lines, and the sadness of the families saying goodbye to their husbands who already have been called up. And now they've got a new thing, which is if they arrest you for protesting against the war, you immediately end up getting put into the front line. That's how they think they're going to stop it, right? If you protest, you end up on the front line as cannon fodder. I think it's very dangerous. And the reason that's very dangerous is that means that the very people that you want to have most motivated are going to be the people who don't want to be in the war in the first place. Think about that. That's not good for morale. Unlike the Ukrainian army, where everybody is keen to fight and protect their country, the feeling is not the same in Russia. And what will that do to Putin, who now apparently has decided he is going to lead the generals because they're not doing it right? We've heard that one before, haven't we? I know better than anybody else. Amal said, keeping the balance is a happy life. Keeping balance equals a happy life. Yeah, Jeannie's reminding me that savory is in the mint family. It doesn't taste like mint at all. I just still got the taste in my mouth. It definitely has a peppery taste. And so, tonight I'm going to cook some chicken with some. I'm going to show you how I'm dehydrating some for the winter in case this doesn't survive. And also just talk about the health benefits. I felt sad, I don't know about you, about all those migrants who were sent under false pretenses to different parts of the states, Martha's Vineyard and to Pennsylvania and wherever. However, I felt sad that they were promised that if they went, this was what they would get, and they didn't get it. That made me sad. But there was also part of me, and I wondered whether any of you have gone through this as well. I tried to make sure that I saw both sides of that story. And I had to admit that I don't think it is fair that Texas, for example, and Florida bear the brunt of all the immigration that's coming in. My personal feeling is that all the different states should equally share that burden. But that's just my belief. So I don't disagree with what they try to do and get attention for. But I do believe that a new policy needs to be written that shares the burden, either financially, if not physically. Does that make sense? Either each state needs to cough up some money towards housing the migrants, or you need to accept them into your communities. That's what I believe. Scary stuff there, all right? And you can't help but wonder where all this is going to stop. Keeping the daily demands of life in balance is one of the greatest tasks of mortality, right? We've had that one, so sometimes they repeat. All right, so life is a balancing act. Stay calm and keep going, all right? Like a bicycle, if you want to keep balance, you have to keep moving forward. Yeah, Jeannie is saying, thanks for my input on Texas. Poor Texas is inundated, yes. They were sent to sanctuary cities, but they were rejected. Yeah, some were, not all, I don't believe, but I could be wrong on it. So it's going to be an important discussion, and I'm certain it will be a midterm topic, without a doubt. It's pretty clear that there are going to be two major midterm topics. One will be the abortion issue on the Democratic side, and then on the GOP side, it's going to be the situation with the migrant influx. I think if you can see both sides of these, it is important. And also we have to be careful about the legality of it. And I say the legality of it. I do believe that was totally wrong to to promise them something to get them to get on an airplane and then not give it to them. I thought that was horrendous. Jeannie's saying all 50 at Martha's Vineyard were taken to a military base. Yes, that doesn't mean they haven't been taken out of Martha's Vineyard, have they, Jeannie? I'll wait for an answer on that one. Throughout the infinite, the forces are in perfect balance, and hence the energy of a single thought may determine the motion of the universe. Right? What you think about affects yourself and everybody else. Okay, so Jeannie is saying that the migrants are not allowed out of that base. So am I correct then that they weren't rejected, they were housed at the base? And part of me goes, as they are not legal, I am certain there are hoops that need to be gone through before they can be assimilated into the communities. But I'm not from your part. I'm just guessing that part of that is all about the fact that they're going to need to be properly processed and then work out what they're going to do with everybody. Our lives are a mixture of different roles. Most of us are doing the best we can to find whatever that right balance is. And for me, balance is family, work, and service. Where is the army base then, Jeannie? Is it not part of the same state? Jeannie's just giving me feedback, and I'm seeking after knowledge here. Jeannie's saying that they were definitely rejected by Martha's Vineyard, whisked away. Yeah, if Martha's Vineyard didn't have the ability to be able to house 50 people, therefore, but I think they're still in the same state. Am I wrong in that? So the state didn't is trying to house them and process them. We'll find out anyway. So I just think it's so sad for them. But we also know that there's going to be more and more people trying to get into the US. And there's nothing new in that. It's been going on forever. But I think that the US Okay, so where is Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts? Forgive me for not knowing. That's what I'm trying to work out is the Martha's Vineyard is an island, as I believe, and so I just want to know if it's actually part of Massachusetts or not. I'm sure somebody will let me know. I believe, another quote, I believe that a balanced life is essential, and I try to make sure all of our employees know that and live that way. Why shouldn't your workplace reflect your values? The answer for us is to integrate philanthropy with work. You know, I think it's really important that we understand that the most valuable asset any business has is its people. And therefore, the more that you can do to be at one with the personalities and the needs of your staff, the happier your staff will be and the longer they will stay with you. So I think it's really important that we understand that. And also really important that we understand the balance of that. All right, so Jeannie's saying they are in Massachusetts, okay, but they're not allowed in the posh place, which is Martha's Vineyard. Yeah, so, you know, Martha's Vineyard is pretty small, isn't it? So it was actually the island, they took them off the island, but they are still being housed and fed, presumably, and have medical facilities and everything else within Massachusetts, but just not on Martha's Vineyard. How about this one? Edit your life frequently and ruthlessly. It's your masterpiece, after all. You remember what I said about I realized that my day timer digitally was totally overwhelming. Therefore, I needed to go back to a manual one. And then when I realized my manual one was getting clogged up, I went, okay, I need to divide this up into different things. I need to keep the planning aside. It doesn't have to be in my day-to-day timer. All right. And so to me, I'm looking all the time at different ways of doing things. You all know that I am busy trying to restain all the railway ties on my property. And I would like to say that one of the best things I did was to buy the you remember I showed you my CSI suit that I bought. Well, it's not as clean as it was last week because I wore it. And as you will probably see, I used it to do the dark stain. If you can see that. But the good news was it was so nice to be able to just go, all right, I need some fresh air. Let me go and stain. Now, where is my CSI suit so that I can just put it over all my clothes and not worry? I want to tell you, it just changed the whole thing about going out and staining stuff. Not that I had to stop and change clothes and do that. I could just put this right over all my clothing and know that I was good to go. And boy, it made a difference. saved me so much time, and it worked really well. So all right, so Jeannie, obviously this is a hot button issue for her. And yeah, Jeannie said, did you see the hundreds on the island? I thought it was 50 that went to the island. We will get Jody just to confirm that in a second, or maybe you could, Jeannie. I understood 50 were sent to Martha's Vineyard. But again, if I'm wrong, forgive me. Anyway, but she's saying, think about the thousands that are going into Texas. I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you that they need to do something about this. And Jeannie's saying they come illegally to sell drugs, run from the law, and get all sorts of benefits for free. All right. So I don't believe that's true of all of them, is it, Jeannie? Maybe some of them, but I believe a lot of them are trying to get a better life. Jody is confirming it was approximately 50 that went to Martha's Vineyard. Right, not hundreds, yeah. I thought you said, did you see the hundreds on the island? Right. So I want to tell you something. I don't have the answer, Jeannie, and except I do believe that all the different states need to share the burden. I do believe that. But I think I've said that a number of times, so let me leave it there. By the way, one of the things that I did this week was I went to go visit a neighbor who is due to have a very serious operation next week. And it was really nice to go sit with her and just talk with her and be with her. And I found, even with everything else that was going on in my week, just taking the time to do that put me back in balance. Does that make sense to anybody? That sometimes being well balanced is not all about you. It's really important that however stressful your life is, there's always somebody whose life is a lot more stressful. And one of the things I do to keep in balance is to remind myself of that. All right, this is not just about me. Who do I know that needs me to go sit with them for a little while to let them know they're not alone? And I am glad that I did it. And the other thing is, I might have told you that she's about to have a major operation that will put a big scar right the way down her stomach, but also across her stomach. They've warned her they may go both ways. And if they do, she obviously is not going to have any muscles left in her stomach. So I'm busy rigging up a system to help her get out, sit up in bed when she wants to get up. And it's one that I worked out when I had 17 stitches down my stomach. And I know it works because I've done it twice. And so I've been helping her rig up this system for when she gets home from that operation. So really important to understand that was part of my balance. And as you all know, one of the best ways I can rebalance myself is to be creative. And I am so glad that I did that. There's something about just getting into my craft room and sitting there and giving myself the time to just play that balances me out beautifully. The other thing is, this is the same computer I use in the craft room. I obviously have to stop on Thursday nights because I need the computer back in the kitchen. If you're too busy with either work or other activities, the more you should realize that your life is not in balance. If you're too busy, you're not in balance. And remember what I said. If I have got this picture in front of me, it was great at the beginning of the week because I just had a couple of things on it. But as the week progressed, I was filling up more and more and more. And I went, no, that's beginning to stress me out even looking at it. And then I went, what I want to look at is this. I want it basically to stay pretty clean. I knew that my task at the moment in the garden was to get those ray dyes done. And it is amazing to me how much better they look. I've done a little vlog to show you, but it is amazing how much better they look. So, and I'm doing it, as you know, just one step at a time. I don't go out there until I get exhausted or anything. I just go out there until it feels like enough, and then I do a little bit more and stop. And by doing that and having the CSI suit that I can put on and not worry about getting my clothes dirty, all has worked so well. And I will continue to do that into the fall and then again in the spring, because now I know what works. It's easier to do. By the way, we had the funeral this week on Monday. So did any of you learn anything? Did you feel anything during the funeral? Did you learn anything? Was there any amusing moment in it? To me, I thought I'd tell you that I saw an amusing moment. Somewhere in all of that going on, how many of us did not realize there was a second verse to God Save the King? It was just like, there's a second verse? And the funny thing was the whole congregation was going, there's a second verse? Here's something important to remember, if you can. Balance is not better time management, but better boundary management. Balance means making choices and enjoying those choices. So if you are feeling stressed and you are feeling that you have to, you understand that is not your life in balance. I no longer think that I have to go and stain or paint. What I say to myself, you see, I've changed my thinking about these things, right? I say to myself, it's time to go out and get some fresh air. But I'm a multitasker, so what can I do while I'm breathing in fresh air? Do you understand? So I always link the two together. It is also part of my steps for the day, right? I strive to get 6,000 steps a day minimum. And, going outside and getting some fresh air is part of that. I had a wonderful moment this week where I realized I had made a difference in somebody's life way back when. Probably about 10, 15 years ago, I donated time to the Boys and Girls Club. And what I did is I took a group of about 6 students or 6 participants in the Boys and Girls Club, and I helped them put together a program to educate people about bullying in schools. And so one of the things we did is we put together a video to demonstrate the different sorts of bullying that they'd witnessed. It also included what you should do if you had any of these things happen. And then what I did, of course, is I had them rehearse the presentation, to which we had invited some major players in the community. The mayor was invited, and all sorts of dignitaries were invited, people that we thought should be more aware of what is going on and to help make changes, people from the school board and all sorts of things. Anyway, but one of the things I remember was when they were doing pretty well with all of it, I walked in. I used to go in once a week to see how they were doing. And get them back on course and to make sure they kept to the deadlines and everything. But the interesting thing was that the one week I walked in there when they were all doing pretty well and we were in the sort of final moments of it, if you like. And I said to them, okay, I'd like you to do the presentation, but put your scripts down. And they said, what? And I said, you don't know what you're talking about unless you can talk about it without a script. And you've been talking about it with the scripts for quite a while now, so I'm pretty sure you know what you're talking about. Now let's see if it's true. And what I did was I just made them go up and do the presentation without any scripts, and they did a great job. And then the next week, I said to them, right, we got one more little test that I want to do, and that is this time you do the whole presentation, but without any of the audio visuals that you produced. What? I said, we don't know that there isn't going to be a power failure. We don't know that all the equipment's going to work. So I want to make sure that even if it does, you will be able to give a really great presentation. So what I want you to do now is to do this presentation without any audio visual. I want you and your mind to be the audio visual. And you can say, if the audio visuals were working right now, I would be showing you da 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 da. And I said, so talk your way through the audio visual. And what I was trying to show them is that if you can stand up and talk about something without any audio visuals, if you can stand up and talk about something, without a script, then you know what you're talking about. Makes sense. And it's much more powerful because you won't spend the whole time looking down at your script. What you'll be doing is looking at the audience and integrating with them. How many of you can feel the magic in that? Now, the reason I'm telling you the backstory is that I happened to catch on my feed this week a comment from one of those 6 children that I trained way back when. And guess what? She was doing a speech somewhere, a major one. When I say a major one, but it was, and I just went to her Facebook page and I just wrote on there, and I remember you when. You can imagine how great that was. And what I thought I'd share with you was her reply. And she said, thank you for being my inspiration. And so, it was just a small amount of time that I gave, a couple of months in the summer, one summer, to help the Boys and Girls Club. But how many of you know it came back to me and paid me in absolutely tenfold to know that at least one of those young people went on to become a speaker because I'd had that impact on her. It brings tears to my eyes, but it was wonderful. So the legacy lives on. But how many of you also know that part of me goes, I wonder if it's time for me to go back and do some more and find another little group of people who need to be inspired to show that they can do these things. Oh, it was Jody. Jody's saying how very special. I want to tell you, you can probably tell I've still got tears in my eyes, but it was just like, I really did feel I knew her when, all right? And she was not that's not true. She was a confident person, but she wasn't sure the path she wanted to take at all. And I kept telling her, don't worry, the path will be shown to you. You don't have to fight it. The quote I have now is, a balance of giving and receiving is essential to keeping your energy, mood, and motivation at a consistently high level. A balance of giving and receiving is essential to keeping your energy, mood, and motivation at a constant level. It was very important for me this week to be really aware of the gifts I was given of love. The one neighbor who wrote to me wasn't even in the country at the time that she said, do you need a lift on Tuesday? Right? She was traveling. But you knew they'd come back and take me if I needed it. I was very touched with that gift. And so I look at it, and how difficult it was to say no to Benji, and not Benji, Dougie, about my going over to stay the night. What I said to him was, I might take you up on that offer if they have to do surgery, right? Because maybe then I will need that help. But right now, I don't feel that will be necessary. But I will advise you if that changes. So setting that boundary, I felt more comfortable. Right, Jeannie, by the way, made a comment about the royals at the funeral. She's saying the royals were marvelous and impeccably behaved. The Brits were wonderful in how they honored their queen. Yes, and Lauren wrote to me afterwards and said, all those flowers that were thrown at the hearse as it went by, that those flowers were picked up. They they didn't just go in the incinerator or anything. They were picked up and put in place. I thought that was pretty amazing. And, I thought the baby royals did so well. Charlotte and George. I thought they did a great job. And Charlotte reminding her brother to please lower your head when the casket goes by. And that was so cute. And how many of you loved her little horseshoe brooch that she had been given by the Queen, that she was wearing that? And for the first time, she was wearing a hat. And she wore it well, I thought. But it's amazing how you can never please all of the people all of the time, isn't it? Somebody was complaining that Queen Consort Camilla wore a fascinator instead of a hat. You can't win, can you? You can do it for weddings, but apparently not for funerals. So remember that it doesn't matter, how many people there are in the world. You will never, ever please them all. And that's okay. So what I did this week as well was I reminded myself of some 7 emotionally intelligent questions. Questions I needed to ask myself and of others. And I thought I would share them with you because these things help keep me in balance. All right? The first one was, let's think about why and why not. That's one thing that goes through my mind. Let's think about why and why not. You see, Doug and Jess's kindness was so important to me, and I needed them to know that. But I also needed them to know why saying no to them was important to me. And that my needs were actually better met by being on my own at that time than being in company. I wonder if any of you can relate to that. So I wanted to make sure they understood both sides. I wasn't saying no to them. I was saying yes to looking after me in a way that suited me. And I do have that right. I made sure that this week I used a lot of please and thank yous and you're welcome. And because that keeps me in balance as well. Being polite keeps me in balance. I made sure that this week I asked the question, may I check my understanding with you? All right? So I didn't assume I'd understood everything. I went to check it with the nurse, and that's when I found out that he had actually said something that my mind hadn't taken in. All right? So I was so grateful that I had learned that skill. Let me make sure I know before I leave. And by the way, they gave me a great pamphlet and told me what to expect and, what to wear and what not to wear and all those sort of things. But I was glad that I did it. I also was very aware that my brain was under stress when I went to see the specialist. And I gave myself an okay to ask questions. I must say that there was something about the way he was so efficient that sort of put me off asking a lot of questions of him. Maybe that's why he does it. But it was almost like he was in and out and gone on to the next patient, sort of thing. That is fine. And I know at one point I said to him, hopefully I won't be seeing you again. Because I realized that if I see him again, it means that they have to do surgery. So you understand that being funny helped me in those moments. I was really said please and thank you so much to them when they both removed their masks and said, you have no idea how much of the stress you have now taken, how it's lowered my stress level, being able to lip read for you both. Thank you so much. I wanted them to know that older people need to be able to see lips move in order to understand. One of my friends got scammed this week by a relative. Can you imagine that? And one of the questions or statements that I've learned in emotional intelligence is to remind people they are not alone. And I made sure I mentioned, gosh, something, I've made that mistake too, right? And talked about when I had been caught. Because we all make mistakes and we all mean well and we all look after our money until somebody touches that emotional button that guilts us out and we feel we need to do something. I've been there. I've got the t-shirts. So to me, it was like I totally related to it. And then to get scammed on it, that's, just horrible. So I want you to know that being able to empathize with somebody with how you messed it up too is very emotionally intelligent, because it tells them they weren't stupid. They were just not vigilant in, protecting themselves in a moment of emotional manipulation. And the last one that I used this week was, may I ask for advice? I made sure that I spoke to a lot of people in terms of, can you give me your input on this matter? Or could I ask your advice about how did it feel? Da, 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 da. I really have tried to do that. I wanted to listen. And it wasn't that I was being negative. It's like I want to be prepared. Now, one of the things that I said was to the nurse was, I don't know how my body will take to being invaded by a needle into my boob. I have no idea how my body will take that. But my question would be, I don't know if any of you can see this picture. I had this picture of my standing there and they're doing a mammogram trying squish. And now they're about to poke me with a big fat needle. What if I fainted? Would I be left hanging by one boob? Do any of you see that picture? I did. So before I left there, I said to them, this is my fear. What if I am not as brave as I think I am? And what if I faint at the idea of that needle going into my boob? Is there any way I can sit down to have that done, or maybe even lie down to have that done? You see, I wanted to know if it was possible. But if I don't tell them that I need that, or I would appreciate that. Now, why do I think that's possible? I know that when they draw blood, for the longest time I had to lie down. And so to me, it is about, my body doesn't do invasion well. Do you all know what I'm talking about? My body reacts very strongly. Yes, Jody's saying there must be a way they need to accommodate wheelchair-bound persons. Yes, that's what I reckoned as well. And, at my age, did you see the picture though, Jody? Can you imagine it? And that was my fear. What if I faint? And you're not allowed to move because they're busy, putting a needle in. And it's not a fine embroidery needle. It is a fat darning needle. It's just sort of like, yeah, what if? So I'm going to keep talking about that. When I go back on Tuesday, I will go, where do I sit or lie down? I have a fear of fainting. Right? I'm going to make sure I keep telling them the same story because I will feel safer if I do. And I want to feel more safe. I want them to get the best possible result in their needle. Whether I like the result or not is irrelevant. What I want is to help them by not moving. But if my body decides to wimp out on me because it doesn't like the size of that needle, do you understand? It's like it's really important. And so I don't know how many of you watching have had this done. I presume I'm not the first. It's like, I'm pretty certain you must have gone through the same thing as well. So if any of you are watching and have had a biopsy of the boob, please let me know. I'd be very interested in your feedback. But I did know that I was entitled to have that conversation. You see, I feel much more. You see, Jody's saying it's done lying down. They didn't tell me that. If they had told me that, I wouldn't have needed to make my fear known. Well, that's good to hear. You can probably hear that. Thanks, Jody. The fact that it's done lying down. Yeah, I can see why that's a good thing. You'd be much less likely to move lying down. So what will I be doing between now and Tuesday? What will I need to do to keep balance? And I would say exactly what I've been doing. I will need to keep getting up in the usual time, and I will need to keep tidying up as I go. By the way, I didn't try and tidy up the whole house in one go. I just do a little bit more each day, and I'm getting there. I will need to keep looking for the passport because I spend a little bit of my day every day just getting another step closer to finding this passport. I know it's here somewhere. I'm pretty sure it is. And Jody's saying you've been doing really a marvelous job and I've been so impressed. Well, Jody, I want to tell you it's taken a lot of discipline. But I also know, and I haven't talked about that yet, but I also know I've been working really hard at going to bed earlier. And instead of sitting up and watching stuff in my living room, if it gets to midnight, I go, you can watch another episode, but you need to do that one in bed. So that I do go to bed and I'm in my bed and resting. And by the way, I quite often never get to watch that episode because by the time I've got everything done and taken my pills and, got to bed, I'm fast asleep in a heartbeat. And I am pleased that I'm doing it the right way because I'm getting very good quality sleep. You see, I am checking on all these things to make sure I stay in balance. I'm also, of course, watching my food intake. And one of the things I wanted to do tonight is to show you how I make my dough for my daily pita bread. Because it really is so simple. I don't measure it, and I just want to show you what I do that makes it so simple. Because I'm pretty certain everybody's big thing about making bread is that it's so difficult. And for me, it isn't. So again, I'm going to just show you how I make my multigrain, very tasty bread that I make my pitas from every day. and how I get them ready. So every day I pull out the amount of dough I know I'm allowed to have, and how I use it is up to me. Sometimes I make it into pasta and a pizza. Sometimes I use it to dip in oil and vinegar. And most days I cut it in half and I fill it with cheese and cucumber or lettuce and bacon or something. I put all sorts of things in there. Give us this day my daily pita is what I say. And I've been thoroughly enjoying it. So that's what I'm going to show you. I'm also going to cook some chicken using the savory, and hopefully you will be there to join me with that. I know that the best thing I can do for me this week is to stay balanced. I know I need to keep researching and keep myself educated. I know I need to keep learning. I know I need to keep growing. I know I need to keep in touch with my friends. I know, that I need to just have my usual routine. And I need to be able to receive and still give. All those things are important in keeping balance. I know I need to solve some problems, but I also need to create some mess, in the craft room. And boy, I want to tell you, does that new vacuum cleaner that I've got, the bit that I can use the handheld, does that work hard in that craft room? It is one of the reasons why I got that particular one. But I want to tell you, I'm amazed at how much that picks up in the craft room. And even so, I still use Clarence the cleaner, as you heard, because he picked up the crocheting for me and tried to work his way through it. But I was amazed how much dirt that he picked up this week. So I must have missed last week. And it does amaze me how much hair and dust and that thing picks up. It's what, I never find it a waste of time sending Clarence out to go clean the house. And what I do is I divide the house in half, and one day I do one half and the next day I do the other half. And it's just like, wow, can you believe how much dirt there was in the house without, it doesn't look at it. It looks perfectly clean, but it's there. So keep in balance, people. Life, it can be a roller coaster. Jody, I'm hoping that when your medication kicks in this week, you're going to have a lot less pain. But one of the things I want to acknowledge is how you have kept in balance, although you have been in great pain. That's amazing to me. And it's really important. Jeannie is saying, this afternoon we went to the Jewish cemetery to visit relatives' graves before their holy days. I thank my grandparents and my great uncles for coming to the US. And she had a moment of how lucky she is because of that. Yes, and therefore you can, I'm sure, relate to why so many migrants want to also come to the US. Right? They have been told time and time again, it's the land of the free. And if you're feeling oppressed, that's where you go. So, to me, it's like, in a way, I think the US is a victim of its own PR, right? It was built on immigration. And I think it is really important that that we understand that. Yes, and Jeannie's saying they came here legally, right? That is the issue. Yeah. But have you ever broken a rule in your life, Jeannie? And that's what I want you to remember. If you're so desperate, would you walk all the way from, some of those came from Venezuela, I believe, right? Would you walk all the way from Venezuela to Texas to be free? You see, that's what their dream is, to be free. It's funny enough, in Japan, the place to go is Paris. It's France. It's not the US. It's an interesting thing that a lot of the Japanese, their aspiration is to go to France, not to go to the US. So, it depends what your culture is, what you've been taught. So I understand that illegal immigration is a major problem around the world. Think about all these Russians that are leaving Russia that will need to go somewhere. At the moment, they're crossing the borders into the countries where they don't need a visa. But how many of you know there will be hundreds of thousands of them that will cross borders into countries that do require visas just to get out of Russia? They will go illegally if they have to, but they need to get out. And I think we need to remember there is that desperation in the lives of so many people. And yes, I agree with Jeannie that we need to give thanks every day, that we managed to get wherever we are legally. But I also believe that there needs to be compassion for those that don't have that ability. And I understand that we all get upset because, hang on a second, but I have to pay for them. And I had to wait in line. I did. I had to wait in line to come, to get to be in Canada. I had to fill in all the forms and pass all the checks and balances. I understand that. But I also understand refugees. I also understand political asylum. Yeah, and it's not fair, is it? Jeannie is reminding us, she said, we know a relative whose husband came here from England. He gets nothing, and he has waited and waited, cannot even work yet. Yes, doing it the right way sometimes is the slow way. But I am certain that he wouldn't do it any other way anyway, right? So, to me, this is like I can understand um, that anger, definitely, but it doesn't help anybody getting angry at I don't believe it is the migrants that we need to get angry with. It's like, we need to just find a better way of doing this. And I think if we think for a second that people are not going to want to come to our countries in the third world, then, the problem is that we don't have enough ability for them to come in legally. Yeah, Jeannie's saying it's not anger, it's frustration. Yes. But I think, frustration is just one notch away from anger, right? And you can't, with all due respect, I don't think you can be frustrated without having some anger. The two are sort of intermeshed in my view. So what is the answer? That would be my question. I think what we all need to think about is, what is the answer? I don't believe closing the borders is the answer. I don't believe that in one moment. I think we need to find a different way. But I do believe most sincerely that all the different states, and the same in Canada, that we all need to share that burden, not just one state or two. No, I understand that totally. So keep it in balance. Try not to go too far in either direction. Remember the pendulum. Can I do a pendulum quickly? With what? Okay, that would do. And I always say this to people, remember the pendulum, all right? If you push too far one way, it will push all the way back too far. And then you end up on the floor. There it is. So what I would like to see is that whole thing taken in a way that can create balance, that we can, find different ways of helping people. And I assure you that Germany did an amazing job, an absolutely amazing job of accommodating hundreds of thousands of migrants. They didn't say no. They knew there was a need. And what they did is they made room. And I really thought that Angela Merkel would pay the price come re-election, and she didn't. people understood that when you're running away from tyranny, when you're running away from those sort of things, we need to open our doors and help people wherever we can. So, having said all of that, let's stay in balance. Let's not take it too far one way or the other. And let's understand both sides of that story. I'm glad you brought in the example, Jeannie, because, those people who come into countries legally get very frustrated with those who come in illegally. Why were the rules different? Well, life isn't fair. That is the one thing we all need to remember. Life isn't fair. If you expect it to be, you will be very frustrated in your life. You won't be in balance. I'm not surprised that the rules change for different people. Right? It's nothing new in that. So this is Dear Mama Sal saying we all can help one another. And I pray that all of us stay in balance this week, regardless of what life is throwing at us. This is Dear Mama Sal saying thank you so much for being here. Jody, thank you so much for being here to mod. And thank you, Jeannie, for the backup. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. And we'll see you again for Coping with Life this evening at 7 o'clock Pacific time. This is Dear Mama Sal saying love you dearly. And bye-bye for now.